Hey, there we go. Good deal. We are up and running. All right, so yeah, there was tons of them that came to get him, and definitely didn't need it. But well, and that's true. You think about all the times he had escaped, and they didn't know how he escaped. They should have, but they didn't. So yeah, they were there. They were make sure they took care of him. The second irregularity was being that it's nighttime. What has just taken place, or had taken place not long before that?
Human sacrifice.
Human sacrifice.
Evening
sacrifice. We jumped religions there. The evening sacrifice. Yeah, it had taken place. Of course, we know through the Mishnah that in the Talmud that you weren't supposed to do that, right? And we'll see more of that today, where they're seated between the morning and the evening sacrifice. So that was the second regularity. In the Sanhedrin, the Talmud says the Sanhedrin sat from the close of the morning sacrifice to the time of the evening sacrifice. So even by their law, they were having irregularity by meeting afterwards. The third irregularity is that it is the first day of what?
Passover?
Passover, yeah, the feast of Passover. The Mishnah says, "Thou shalt not judge on the eve of the Sabbath day, nor of any festival." So we've got three irregularities. And then we have the interrogation of Jesus by Caiaphas. And when Caiaphas gets involved, he starts making irregularities like they're just flying off the shelf. John 18:19 says, "The high priest then asked Jesus." Now, we've studied and we talked about the rules. One of the problems here is he's the accuser and the judge, right? And that's one of the ones we talked about last time. We'll get to it in a minute. But this is interesting. And that is it. So when you think about it, they met how many times before they started the trial of Jesus? How many assemblies did we say they pulled together? Three. September, February, and March. And in February, they pulled together because Jesus had done a great miracle. And what was that? Raised Lazarus from the dead. And so here we have at that point Caiaphas saying what at the second assembly? Caiaphas says that Jesus must die. So here he is, the accuser, and now he's going to be the judge, right? We talked about how unusual that is in any mindset.
You can almost, when you read all this together, you can almost visualize the ongoing conspiracy that was taking place for some time.
Right.
This isn't happening in the secret corner. This was laying out months on end. This is going to happen. They just waited the right time for that.
Right. This is definitely a conspiracy, and you can see it. You can see the detail of the arrangements and how they've been focusing on doing this for some time now. This isn't something that just popped up and they brought a man to trial and said, "Oh, okay, he's at trial." No, this has been ongoing for a long time.
You can drill that, not just current events, but events through history.
Yeah.
Not just America, but other places in the world. People will say that. They don't fire together. It may take a while, but they will do that.
Sure. When you said it, the first thought that came to my mind outside of Jesus is Julius Caesar. That too, Brutus. The majority of the time when you see things like this happen, and whether it's assassination, trying to take somebody out of power, people just don't run into it. It takes some time to plan it because they got to do it right. And you got to remember here, yes, these are powerful men, probably the most powerful in the nation. Because you'll recall, even King Herod had to stand before the Sanhedrin. But they also have to have face with the community, right? They have to put on a show that they're doing things right. And that's going to come into play a little bit here, because everything they did for the child of Jesus just about was wrong. Now, we just said that he accuses Jesus of blasphemy. Deuteronomy 19, 16 and 7 says, if a witness rise up against any man, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and judges, which shall be in those days. So rather than put Jesus on trial, what Caiaphas should have done was brought Jesus to the priest. And both of them stood before the priest and discussed it. Not Caiaphas being the judge himself. Let's see, next irregularity, because I want to get to some new ones. The fifth irregularity is when he asked Jesus to confess. This is inconsistency, or the inconsistency is to arraign a man against whom no formal accusations have been presented, or to interrogate him regarding his own affairs without confronting him with this legal constituted accusers. So here, by all means, you had to have witnesses, right, to put Jesus away. And they should speak first. But here we don't even have the witnesses brought forward first. Who's brought forward first? It's Jesus. And Jesus doesn't have to speak. Well, we talked about that. Now, Jesus gives a good answer. Because he's like, he says, John 18, 20, 21, he said, I spoke openly to the world. Remember that? He said, I spoke where?
In the synagogue.
In the synagogues, in the temple, whether there was Jews always there, and in secret I've said nothing. Why ask me? Ask them which heard me what I said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. So clearly here, Jesus says, there's nothing done in secret. And then the Mishnah says we have it as a fundamental principle of our jurisprudence that no one can bring an accusation against himself. Okay? So he should not be asking Jesus for any kind of comment or any kind of question. That goes against the Mishnah. The sixth irregularity, John 18, 22 says, and when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by Jesus with the palm of his hand, or struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, and saying, answerest thou the high priest so? So here we have this brutality that begins. And this, is probably where it first begins, and it's only going to get worse. We're going to see that, right? But whenever you're a prisoner, because even in this day, and we get this from this part of the Sanhedrin, and that is you're innocent until proven guilty. So that means until he's proven guilty, it is the Sanhedrin's responsibility to protect him. And yet protecting was the last thing on their mind. They allowed this guy officer to hit him. And they would all be involved in hitting for long. So we have this brutality. And Jesus, after getting struck, would answer him and say, I've spoken, if I've spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me? So he says, hey, if I've done wrong, show me. Bring the witnesses. Let's talk about it. Of course, he knew they had no witnesses. All right, so now we have the deposition of the witnesses. Matthew 26:59 says, "Now the chief priests and elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none." So at this point, they can't find false witnesses, right? They're going to have to summon witnesses and offer bribes just to get someone to come and to testify against Jesus. Now, a lot of that's going to be because Jesus is up for death. And as we talked about a false witness, if you were found to be a false witness, you got the punishment of the one that you were your testimony went against. So I'm sure a lot of them are going, I'm not getting up there. I didn't hear him say that. So, so that's the seventh irregularity. Is here they can't find a witness, and they're going to have to go get false witnesses. The eighth irregularity is a witness has to be administered an oath binding them to absolute truthfulness. The Mishnah says, remember that a heavy responsibility rests on you. So they would be given an oath. Same thing we do at a trial before we give testimony. That's the eighth irregularity. That wasn't done when they did find false witness. It says, the ninth irregularity says, these men are no longer judges. But at this point, what are they? They're a band of murderers. Just out to murder. It said, for many bear false witness against him, but their witnesses agreed not together. At the last came two false witnesses and said, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. And then I will destroy the temple that is made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands. So we've got two testimonies here. One says, Jesus said, I am able to destroy the temple and to rebuild it in 3 days. And then you got another one that's saying, I will destroy the temple. Now, the irregularity here is that first of all, what Jesus said is destroy the temple and I'll rebuild it. Didn't say he would. He said destroy it and I'll rebuild it. And John would tell us in 2:21, what he was talking about was his body. That was the temple he was talking about. But we have a problem here too, because the testimonies are clearly different. All right? So the one, we talked about this last time, if the testimonies disagreed in any shape or form, you had to acquit the person. So we talked about if I said this, I saw this Israelite, I'm a witness, and I saw this Israelite worshiping the sun. And then another guy comes in to be witness, and he says, I saw the Israelite worshiping the moon. Both of them are idolatry worship, right? But they don't agree completely. So even though what they saw is wrong, because their testimony disagrees, the person has to be acquitted. So here, when you think about what is said, I am able to and I will, is two different things. I am able to would really be no more than like a misdemeanor, I guess in their terms, right? All he's saying is, all he's doing is being a braggart. Yes?
It's conflicting testimony.
It's conflicting testimony, yeah. Don't agree. But if I say I will destroy, now that's worthy of death, right? So the conflicting testimonies, one is really like a misdemeanor and the other one is death. But they don't agree. So right there, Jesus should have been let go. And of course, we know he wasn't. So let's look at the 10th irregularity. It says the two being examined were done so simultaneously and in the presence of each other. Again, not necessarily by the Mishnah and the Talmud, that's not the way it should be. Now, in our day and time, witnesses can be present when someone else gives testimony, or another witness gives testimony. But in these days, they couldn't. They were to be brought in one at a time, ask the question, so that they couldn't work off of each other. And here they are being talked to simultaneously, and they still can't get it right. So now we have the second interrogation put to Jesus by Cephas. So Cephas should have already refused the testimony of the false witness, but he makes it the basis for the second interrogation. And then Cephas speaks to Jesus and says, "Why are you silent? Speak." But by law, Jesus doesn't have to. And it says in Mark 14:61, but he held his speech and answered nothing. Now that, in its own right, I mean, could you sit there and listen to people make false testimonies about you and not step up and say something to defend yourself? What's that? Most people couldn't. And yet Jesus is silent. That should have been an eye-opener. Of course, their eyes were blinded, right? But that should tell you something. Matter of fact, we talked about last time, Pilate would be amazed that Jesus didn't say anything to the point he was ready to let him go. Then we have the third time that they pull him in front of Cephas. And it says the testimony is no longer reviewed, and Cephas basically just throws it all into the trash. But why doesn't he let him go? But at this point, Cephas, who's not only the judge, but the president and the prince of the tribunal, the head guy, becomes a self-constituted witness and accuser. So he openly violates his own official obligation, which is the 12th regularity. We got through 15 last time, so I'm almost there. So 13 says, it was found in the oath that he proffered to Jesus. It says, I adjourn thee by the living God, that thou tell us whether thou be Christ, the Son of God. And this violates law because remember, they were supposed to do this with a heavy responsibility. And this was to eliminate the accused of committing perjury against themselves. So here he's asking him to, are you God? Now, we'll come back to that because there's another irregularity of when that's asked. But that's a little later on. All right, come on. The 14th irregularity, you'll remember when Jesus answers him, what does he say? 2 words. Not here. When they ask him, are you God? Are you the Son of God? I am. I am. Repeats what his father said, right? I am, the great I am. At that point, what does Cephas do? Rips his clothes.
Don't need any more.
What's that?
He said we don't need 2 witnesses.
Don't need any more witnesses, right? No. Here we have it. But he rents his clothes, which goes against the law. I was trying to find it. But yeah, so Leviticus 2:21:10 says, and he that is a high priest among his brethren, upon whose head the anointing oil was poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not uncover his head nor rent his clothes. That means whether they're mourning, whether they're angry, anything. Right? And yet he tears his part. He says, he hath spoke blasphemy. We come to the 15th irregularity. He pronounces the accused the charge of blasphemy without having duly inquired into the reasonableness of the response, of the declaration contained in the response. Again, we don't need witnesses. He's declared it. And now we come to where we left off last time, and that's the 16th irregularity. This one, again, committed by Cephas. He's done a lot of them. He's going to continue to do a few. He unwarrantably, or the unwarrantable exclamation of he has blasphemed, right there foretells the judgment, or the decision of the other judges, right? It deprives the subordinate judges of the opportunity to think on their own and to make a good decision. Because he basically says, I know he's guilty, and that he's guilty, so you should know he's guilty too. We talked about it before, as a younger judge, maybe one that's only been in there a short period of time, maybe younger of age. Hey, this is Cephas. If he's saying it, it might be true. Maybe I was wrong. So basically, they don't have the opportunity that should have been given them because the judgment, and here's the other thing, the judgment has to be expressed as I absolve or I condemn. That's how you vote it. Now we have the 17th irregularity. What further need do we have of witnesses? So here we have a judge denying any other witnesses, right? The judge was required to make a careful and minute examination of every witness that came in, putting them to a test. There were 7 questions that had to be asked of the witnesses. The first was it in the year of Jubilee? Second, was it in an ordinary year? Third, in what month? Fourth, on what day of the month? 5, at what hour? 6, in what place? 7, do you identify the accused? So these are 7 questions that had to be asked. And now he's saying don't even bring in witnesses. Because it was their job to hear the witnesses and put them to the test. And instead, we see that, right? We see that today. We see a judge in a proper court that sits up there. And they have a tough job because as a judge, you've got to try to remove the emotion and look at the law. What does the law say? And that's what they should have been doing here as well. And that's what these 7 questions were kind of geared to guide them to.
The judge needs to be apolitical.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's hard to do. But if you want to be a fair judge, you've got to be here in this case here.
Sure didn't happen here. Yeah, you have to be apolitical. You have to look at what the law says and put the people to the test of the law. Not how it made somebody feel, not what it looked like. What does the law say?
When you think we would be wrong, but because we're to follow the laws of the land, so long as they don't contradict God's laws. But we're a government that is got standard worldly government rules, and then we have a spiritual kingdom that we worship. And if we decide we don't want to follow one of those rules, we're basically saying, yeah, we don't like this rule, we're not going to follow it, and yes, we should be following the laws of the land, just like every time we speed, we're breaking the law. Now, that's one thing, and that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. They were a theocracy, so they had the law. They claimed to have God as their rule. In many of the laws, they follow like 2 witnesses. That all came straight from the Old Testament.
Right.
So when they're being political, it's not about a worldly point of view or a world view. It's God's law they're rejecting when they do that. And that's even different from us being political. I mean, we shouldn't be political in anything when it comes to serving God. It's what does the Bible say?
Right.
But they claim that their view was from the Old Testament.
Right.
Though it wasn't, and they just threw that, threw many of those. Like when he said, I assure you by the living God, answer, are you the Son of God? And that was put in an oath where Jesus had to answer.
Yeah.
So they used the parts of the Old Testament to, get him to answer, but they didn't follow it.
Right.
I never really thought about that until you were going over it.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that
Being
either.
a theocracy,
Right.
as they claim to be, they
Right.
were really kind of under the thumb of the Roman government.
Yeah.
systems,
Yeah.
God's law, and
Right.
government.
Yeah.
Did not, code control.
Right.
They weren't terrible.
Yeah, they could kill Jesus, they could carry out execution.
Right, yeah, and we haven't even gotten to Rome yet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's a good point, and I hadn't thought about that, is that they're, under this theological law, this is the law of God. You know, for us today, we have the law of the land, we go to court, it's the law of the land, but then we have the spiritual kingdom that comes first for us, right? But here, they had it both. It was not only the law of the land, but it was God's law that they were. Now, when I say law of the land, Israel's land, not because Rome was in charge, but you know what I'm saying. It was God's ordained law, and they're rejecting it. So it's not like you said, it's not like I'm speeding, which is wrong, right? It's against the law, but that's not like saying. Bringing only one witness or something that goes against what God put in His law.
Yeah, if they had a theocracy, they didn't have this, we're gonna obey the law until it contradicts God's law. They were supposed to be just following God's law.
Right. Yeah, you're just supposed to be following the law.
They had the Roman law, they even denied that. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the Sanhedrin was put together for in the Maccabean era, was to make sure people knew and followed the law, and that you had somebody that was going to put people to the test of the law. And then it became a power struggle, and, you know, once you get power involved, and these guys were all well off too, so there's probably money passing hands, you know. So
Taking one step further, Mike, they were more willing to break God's law than they were to break the Roman law.
They were.
that's true. They were more willing to break God's law than the Roman law.
We can't execute them.
Yeah, we can't execute it. We got to get Rome to do that. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good
Wow.
point.
Yeah, I hadn't either. It's amazing. All right, so 18th irregularity. By the way, there's 27. Just to let you know. There's 20, we're on the 18th irregularity, there's 27 irregularities. What think ye? Calling for a public and general vote was irregular, right? So Cephas says, what think ye? So he's turning to the group and saying, tell me what you think.
This is after he ripped it.
This is after he's
After he put this display of what he thought. He
exactly.
wasn't supposed to do that.
Wasn't supposed to do that either. He's supposed to be this non-biased judge.
Yeah, last, right? The older, more experienced people.
Right. Yeah. And now he's saying, well, what do you think? Well, hell, after you put on that show.
Do you agree with me or not?
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. Yeah. And I can almost guarantee you everybody there was a part of it. I imagine there were some like Joseph and Nicodemus that weren't. But, and we'll talk about that because Nicodemus explains why he won't. But anyway, it says, here we have Cephas presenting the vote in a mass when the Mishnah said, let the judges each in turn absolve or condemn. So, it's not, it was meant to be a judging in the way where it was very open, very public. Each person voted or said, I absolve, condemn. So it wasn't anything hidden. Well, if you do it this way, how are you going to know who's voting for what? All you just hear is a bunch of yays, right? And then the response is exactly what Cephas wanted, which was he is guilty of death. Mark 26:66, Mark 14:64. 19th irregularity. In the statement, he is guilty of death, they don't follow the rules of deferring to the next day. Okay? In the Mishnah, it says, having deferred the trial to the next day, the judges reassemble by twos and proceed to re-examine the whole case. So not only are you supposed to examine the case, examine the judges, but in a case where the person is being put to death. Now, if there was going to be an acquittal, they could end it. But if there was going to be a condemning, you had to go home and reconvene the next morning. Okay? And go through it all again so that you could thoroughly examine what was being presented. That's how serious they were about putting people to death. Right? And you know, we do that to some extent. Some people would say we take too long to do it. You know, they took a day. We take a century. People be on death row for a decade, right? But it was very serious. They took it very serious. You know, we think back and we think in those days, oh, they're just killing everybody, right? But they took it very serious. It wasn't just something that they was supposed to take lightly or had taken lightly. Now, in this case, they wanted the death, but it was all for the wrong reason. 20th irregularity. Sentencing is pronounced on the same day as the trial began, and according to the law, it should have been deferred to the next day. A criminal case resulting in the acquittal of the accused may terminate the same day of the trial began, but if a sentence of death is pronounced, it cannot be concluded before the following day. All right, 21st irregularity. We've already noted that everybody voted at one time, but there was a couple of people who had a job to do. What was that when you voted? They said on the end.
Record the votes.
Record the votes. You had one secretary recording the absolved. You had one secretary recording the condemned. How can you do that? I guess they're over there going, what? Give me a hand up, give me a hand.
They weren't even pulled together yet. They weren't
They weren't in the semicircle like they were supposed to be.
in session.
Yeah.
It was just a while where right now.
Yeah, because they're just at Cephas' house, right? Yeah. So yeah, the recording wasn't done. And David describes it in Psalms 22:16 when he says, the assembly of the wicked having closed. So 21 irregularities can be seen committed. Not one judge at this point, not one, has risen up to say, hey, wait a minute, time out, guys, we're doing this wrong. Now, again, it most likely didn't include Joseph of Arimathea or Nicodemus. And Nicodemus would actually refuse to go because it was dark. And that we can't meet now. It's dark. So he would refuse to assemble because it was dark. But here you have, and if there are some missing, it's probably very few. And yes, you could have people missing and still hold a trial. But nobody steps up to say, hey, time out, we've done this all wrong. Because, I mean, the punishments for them for doing it the way they did it probably should have been death. Especially playing with someone's life like this. And it's interesting, this guy made a note. Again, I'd advise you, if you can, get this book. It's a short book, 54 pages, Jesus Before the Sanhedrin by Lamont. But he says, it's interesting to note that when Jacob, or the sons of Jacob, plotted to put Joseph to death, Reuben and Judah would step up and say, because they felt remorse, and say, no, let's just sell him, right? And when David was pursued by Ahithophel, and was to have counsel to put him to death, a stranger took up David's defense. And yet nobody stands up for Jesus. At this point, Jesus is taken into custody by the soldiers. And then this strange event occurs, or is enacted. Matthew 26:67. Then did they spit in his face and buffeted him, and others smote him with the palms of their hands, saying, prophesy unto us, thou Christ, who is he that smote thee? Now, I think about things that I physically can go through. And someone punching me in the face may not feel good, but as a man, I can step back and say, I took that. But there ain't much I can do about being spit in the face. That is so nasty and vile. To me, when we hear it, it's almost like we kind of slide over it. But the fact that we're being spit in the face multiple times is just horrendous to me. It's so dehumanizing. What's that?
Most people become angry when you not get that.
Oh, absolutely.
So you can slap them in the face, they might not take that, spit in the face.
Right.
That's such a low, degrading thing that you would strike back in his reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see the effort here. He said that he was the Son of God. And they seek, it appears, to make that confession that he was. Not only is he not the Son of God, he's not even worthy of being regarded as a human.
Right. Yeah.
He is treated so
Yeah.
inhumanely, and it seems as if, hey, you're not the Son of God, you're not even treated
yeah.
like a human.
You're as bad as those Samaritans. Right. Worse than the Samaritan, yeah. Yes, sir.
They were trying to physically extract the confession out of him. But what was going on then is the same problem we got today. We have the best keep the law that money can buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Brings all, the way I understand, all positions.
Oh, yeah. Some of them bought. Some positions were taken by force. Yeah. So, yeah. When money gets involved, it's never good.
Like the spitting thing, like, think about all the reactions that have happened so far. You got a guy ripping his clothes apart. You got a guy punching, hitting and slapping, open hand.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a guy spitting. These are people that have lost control. Like, they've lost control of their emotions.
Yeah.
That's all stuff you do when you've lost it.
Yeah.
Like, you think, oh, that guy's crazy because he punched a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
He lost control of his emotions and just punched a hole.
Yeah. That's stuff you see at a soccer match, not a court.
These people have all lost their control. You wouldn't even think you'd see that in the World Cup.
Yeah.
The red card, you get ejected, right?
Yeah.
But these people have lost emotion.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason you should. I've never been so angry. I felt like I just had to rip my shirt into pieces and throw it on the floor.
Yeah.
You know, and then like you get so mad at somebody, you're gonna reach out.
Well, that was, you know,
You
that
got another guy so mad he's gonna walk by and spit on him. What? These people are not in any condition to make.
no,
decisions
they're
regarding-
not. They're not.
They couldn't even decide if the irrigation problem from yesterday was an issue. Like they're
Right.
in no mental capacity.
They are
to make a
not.
choice.
Their mental state is well beyond what it should be to make.
All three of those are like degrading. They're in school they teach you the same thing. Like especially when you grow up in sports, like yeah, punch me because that's like your physical assault. You were a boy, you didn't know what you were doing. You slap me, you spit on me. You're attacking me like that's because you lost your emotions.
Right.
You're using your emotions to attack my emotions. Like those are two.
Yeah.
That's an emotion on emotion.
You've gone over the edge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just take it too far.
Mhm.
I mean, I've got fights before to punch people. They
Yeah.
punch me, and I'm proud of those moments. But
Right.
those like physical interaction between boys that happens pretty regularly.
And you're doing this against a man that really can't defend himself, right?
Well, and he won't.
I'm sure he's tied up.
Yeah, and you know he won't.
Yeah, and you know.
He's already exhibited that.
I don't know, maybe, but really.
Well,
Once he slapped him and he didn't retaliate.
At this point, I think he's probably proven that he won't, retaliate against them, whatever they decide to do. Physical beating.
all right, I think we'll go ahead and end there, and we'll pick up next time. Like I said, I think we're on 22, and we got 27, so there's some more interesting ones to come. So, all right, any questions or comments? Thank y'all.